The gunshot cracked through the desert air like thunder, and Isabella Martinez threw herself flat against the stagecoach floor as Apache war cries split the blazing Arizona afternoon. Her heart hammered against her ribs as another bullet splintered the wooden seat where she'd been sitting moments before, clutching the letter that had changed her life. A marriage proposal from a rancher she'd never met, offering salvation from the poverty that had consumed her family in San Antonio. "Stay down, miss," shouted the driver, but his voice was cut short by a gurgling sound that made Isabella's blood run cold. Through the chaos of dust and screaming horses, she glimpsed painted warriors on horseback, their bronze skin gleaming with sweat and war paint, moving with lethal grace around the doomed stagecoach. Before we continue with Isabella's incredible journey, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to help me reach my first 50 subscribers. Your support means everything, and helps me bring you more epic Western romance tales. Now, let's get back to the story. The stagecoach lurched violently as an arrow found its mark in one of the horses. Isabella was thrown against the far wall, her carefully pinned dark hair tumbling loose around her shoulders. Through the small window, she caught sight of him, the warrior who would change everything. He sat astride a magnificent black stallion, his long dark hair flowing behind him like a banner of war. Even in the midst of battle, there was something about his bearing that commanded attention, a regal quality that spoke of leadership and power. Their eyes met for a split second through the chaos, and Isabella felt something electric pass between them, a recognition that defied explanation. His dark eyes widened slightly, as if he too felt the inexplicable pull. Then the moment shattered as the stagecoach tilted dangerously, one wheel catching in a hidden gully. Isabella knew with crystal clarity that she was about to die. The other passenger, an elderly merchant, was already slumped over, blood seeping from a wound in his chest. The guard lay motionless on the ground outside, his rifle just beyond reach. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer in Spanish, thinking of her mother's face, of the dreams that would die with her in this God-forsaken stretch of desert. The war cries grew closer. Rough hands seized her arms, dragging her from the wreckage of the stagecoach. She expected to feel the bite of a blade, the final darkness closing in. Instead, she found herself staring up into the face of the warrior who had caught her attention, and he was even more magnificent up close. His features were sharply sculpted, all strong jaw and high cheekbones, with skin like burnished copper in the desert sun. War paint streaked across his face in bold lines of red and black, but it was his eyes that held her captive. They were the deep brown of rich earth after rain, intelligent and searching. When he looked at her, Isabella felt as though he could see straight through to her soul. "Please," she whispered in English, then switched to Spanish when the words wouldn't come. "Por favor, no me mates." The warrior studied her for a long moment, his head tilted slightly. When he spoke, his English was accented but clear. "You are not like the others." Other Apache warriors gathered around them, their horses snorting and stamping in the heat. Isabella was acutely aware of her vulnerable position, alone and at their mercy in the vast emptiness of the desert. But this warrior, clearly their leader by the way the others deferred to him, continued to study her with an intensity that made her skin flush despite her terror. "What is your name?" he asked. "Isabella," she managed, surprised by her own boldness. "Isabella Martinez. Isabella." He repeated it slowly, as if testing the sound on his tongue. "I am Ayana, war chief of the Chiricahua. You are now under my protection." The declaration sent ripples of surprise through the other warriors. Isabella didn't understand the rapid Apache being exchanged between them, but she caught the tension, the barely contained disagreement. Ayana silenced them with a sharp gesture, his authority absolute. "Why?" Isabella found the courage to ask. "Why protect me?" Ayana dismounted from his stallion in one fluid motion, moving with the predatory grace of a mountain cat. He stepped closer, close enough that Isabella could smell the scent of sage and leather that clung to his skin, could see the way his chest rose and fell beneath the intricate beadwork of his war shirt. "Because the spirits have spoken," he said simply, "and a wise man listens when the spirits speak." Before Isabella could process what that meant, she found herself lifted onto his horse with shocking gentleness. Ayanna swung up behind her, his strong arms encircling her waist as he gathered the reins. The intimate contact sent an unexpected thrill through her, despite everything. His chest was solid and warm against her back, and she caught herself leaning into his strength. "Where are you taking me?" she asked as they began to ride away from the destroyed stagecoach. "Home," was his only reply. The Apache camp nestled in a hidden canyon, protected by towering red rock walls that caught and held the golden light of evening. As they rode into the settlement, Isabella was struck by how different it was from what she had expected. This wasn't some crude collection of primitive shelters, but a well-organized community. Children played in the dust while their mothers prepared the evening meal, and the air was rich with the sense of cooking meat and wood smoke. Every eye turned to watch as Ayanna dismounted and helped Isabella down from his horse. She was conscious of how she must look, a Mexican woman in a torn traveling dress, her hair disheveled and her face streaked with dust. But there was no hostility in the faces watching her, only curiosity. An elderly woman approached them, her weathered face kind despite the sharp intelligence in her dark eyes. She spoke rapidly to Ayanna in Apache, gesturing toward Isabella. Whatever she said made Ayanna smile, the first genuine smile Isabella had seen from him, and it transformed his entire face, making him look younger and infinitely more approachable. "My grandmother Nadzita," he explained to Isabella. "She says you look like you could use a bath and a good meal." "Your grandmother?" Isabella looked between them, noting the family resemblance in their proud bearing. "She raised me after my parents were killed by soldiers," Ayanna said simply. "She is the wisest woman I know." Nadzita took Isabella's hands in her own, studying her with eyes that seemed to see everything. When she smiled, it was like the sun breaking through storm clouds. She spoke again to Ayanna, who translated with obvious amusement. "She says you have fire in your blood and strength in your bones. She likes you." Isabella felt herself relaxing slightly for the first time since the attack. "Please tell her I'm grateful for her kindness." The bath Nadzita provided was in a natural hot spring hidden deeper in the canyon, screened by cottonwood trees, whose leaves whispered secrets in the evening breeze. Isabella sank into the warm water with a sigh of pure relief, letting the heat soak away the terror and exhaustion of the day. For a few precious moments, she could almost pretend this was all some strange dream. But when she emerged from the spring, wrapped in a soft doeskin robe that Nadzita had left for her, reality came crashing back. She was a captive among people she'd been taught to fear, hundreds of miles from the life she'd planned. The marriage proposal in her reticule meant nothing now. Her intended husband would assume her dead if word of the attack ever reached him. The spirits work in mysterious ways. Isabella spun to find Ayanna standing at the edge of the clearing, backlit by the dying sun. He had removed his war paint and changed from his battle gear into simple leather pants and a cotton shirt that revealed the powerful lines of his chest and shoulders. His long hair hung loose around his face, making him look less like a feared war chief and more like a man, a devastatingly handsome man who made her pulse quicken despite everything. "You shouldn't be here," she said, pulling the robe tighter around herself. "This is my land," he replied, but there was amusement rather than threat in his voice. "And you are under my protection. It is my duty to ensure your safety." "Is that what this is? Duty?" The question slipped out before Isabella could stop it, tinged with a disappointment she didn't want to examine too closely. Ayanna moved closer, his footsteps silent on the soft earth. "No," he said quietly. "Duty would have been to let my warriors take what they wanted from the stagecoach and leave no survivors. This is something else entirely." "What?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "I don't know yet." His honesty was disarming. "But when I saw you in that stagecoach, something inside me knew. The old ones have stories about such things, about how the heart recognizes what the mind cannot understand." Isabella felt her cheeks flame. "You don't even know me." Then let me know you. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched her cheek with the backs of his fingers. His skin was warm and calloused from years of handling weapons and horses, but his touch was gentle as a whisper. Tell me about Isabella Martinez. Tell me what brought you to my desert. The simple request undid something inside her. Perhaps it was the shock of the day, or the unexpected kindness she'd found in this place, but Isabella found herself talking. She told him about her family's poverty after her father's death, about her mother's illness that had consumed their savings, about the mail-order bride advertisement that had seemed like salvation. A marriage of convenience, Ayanna said when she finished, to a man you have never met. It would have given my mother the medicine she needs, Isabella said defensively. Sometimes we must sacrifice our own dreams for those we love. And what were your dreams? He asked, before necessity claimed them. No one had ever asked her that before. Isabella looked into his dark eyes and saw genuine interest, as if her answer truly mattered to him. I wanted to teach, she admitted. To have a school where children could learn to read and write regardless of their birth or station. Foolish, I know. Not foolish, Ayanna interrupted. Beautiful. Knowledge is the greatest weapon and the greatest gift. My people have always understood this. He was standing so close now that Isabella could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. The rational part of her mind screamed warnings about propriety and danger, but a deeper part, a part that had been awakened by his gentle touch and genuine interest, yearned to step closer. I should go back to camp, she said, but made no move to leave. Yes, he agreed, but he didn't step away either. Isabella? Yes. I am glad the spirits brought you to me. If you're loving this tale so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I'm working hard to reach 50 subscribers, and every single one of you makes a difference. Help me grow this channel. Now, back to Isabella. The days that followed settled into an unexpected rhythm. Isabella found herself gradually accepted into the daily life of the Apache camp, helping Nasita with cooking and learning to weave baskets from the other women. To her surprise, many of the Apache spoke some Spanish, and communication became easier as the days passed. But it was the evenings she treasured most, when Ayanna would seek her out after the day's duties were done. Sometimes they would walk along the canyon floor while he told her stories of his people and their connection to the land. Other times they would sit by the fire while she shared tales from her childhood in San Antonio. The barriers between them began to crumble, replaced by a growing understanding and attraction that neither could deny. Your people and mine have been at war for generations, Isabella said one evening, as they sat beneath a canopy of stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch. How can this be right? War is what men make when they forget that we are all children of the same earth, Ayanna replied. My grandfather fought alongside Mexican vaqueros against the Comanche. My father counted Spanish traders among his closest friends. It was only when the soldiers came, when treaties were broken and our people were forced onto reservations like cattle, that the old friendships died. And now I follow my heart instead of the rage that has consumed too many of our men. He turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the firelight. My heart tells me that some bonds are stronger than history. Isabella felt her breath catch as he reached out to touch her face, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. Ayanna, I know this is impossible, he said quietly. You are not meant for this life, and I cannot offer you the world you deserve. But I cannot let you go without telling you that these days with you have been the happiest of my life. Who says it's impossible? The words surprised Isabella even as she spoke them. Perhaps the spirits that brought us together know something we don't. Before either of them could think better of it, the distance between them disappeared. Ayanna's lips found hers in a kiss that was gentle at first, questioning, giving her the chance to pull away. Instead, Isabella melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt as she kissed him back with all the passion that had been building between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Ayana rested his forehead against hers, his strong hands framing her face. "Isabella, mi corazón," he whispered, the Spanish endearment sounding natural on his lips. "What are we doing?" "Following our hearts," she replied, echoing his earlier words. "Just as you said." Their relationship deepened with each passing day. Isabella learned to ride Apache style, without a saddle, her legs growing strong from gripping her horse's sides. She discovered she had a gift for languages and began picking up Apache words and phrases, much to Natsita's delight. In return, she taught some of the younger women basic Spanish, and even began the rudiments of reading and writing, using charcoal and flat stones as slate. But it was in Ayana's arms that she truly came alive. Their stolen moments together, beside the hot springs under cover of darkness, in hidden alcoves during the heat of the afternoon, or simply sitting close together while the camp slept, became the highlights of her existence. Each touch, each kiss, each whispered conversation in the darkness bound them closer together. "You realize there's no going back," Ayana said one night as they lay entwined beneath his blankets, Isabella's head pillowed on his chest. "If my people fully accept you as my woman, you become one of us. There would be no return to your old life." Isabella traced patterns on his chest with her fingertip, marveling at the play of muscle beneath his skin. "And if I choose to go back, then I will take you to the nearest town and ensure your safe passage to wherever you wish to go," he said simply. "But I will not lie to you. Letting you go would destroy something inside me." She lifted her head to look at him, seeing the vulnerability he rarely showed. "And what kind of life could I have here as the Mexican woman taken by Apaches?" "As my wife," he corrected firmly. "As the woman who teaches our children, who bridges the gap between worlds. As the mother of sons and daughters who will carry the best of both our peoples in their blood." The image he painted was so vivid, so appealing, that Isabella's heart ached with longing. But practical concerns couldn't be ignored. "The other women accept me now, but would they still if I became your wife? Would the warriors follow a chief whose woman is Mexican?" "Some would struggle with it," Ayana admitted. "But Nazita has spoken in your favor, and her word carries great weight. As for my warriors, they follow me because I am strong and wise, not because of who shares my bed. A few may grumble, but they will not challenge me openly. And the children we might have would be the bridge between our worlds," he said passionately. "They would know the stories of both peoples, speak multiple languages, understand that strength comes from unity rather than division. They could be the beginning of something new, a bloodline that represents hope instead of hatred." Isabella felt tears prick her eyes at the beauty of his vision. But before she could respond, shouts erupted from the direction of the camp's perimeter. Ayana was on his feet instantly, his warrior's instincts taking over as he reached for his weapons. "Stay here," he commanded, but Isabella was already pulling on her clothes. "If there's danger, I want to be with you." He paused long enough to cup her face in his hands, his eyes fierce with love and fear. "If something happens to me, nothing will happen," she said firmly, covering his hands with her own. "We're going to have that future you described, with children who bridge worlds and carry our love in their blood." The attack came at dawn, just as the camp was stirring to life. A combined force of cavalry and Texas Rangers, following the trail from the destroyed stagecoach, descended on the hidden canyon like avenging angels. The Apache fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and caught off guard. Isabella found herself pressed into service, helping tend the wounded, her hands steady despite the chaos around her. She had discovered reserves of courage she never knew she possessed, moving through the battle's aftermath with calm efficiency. But her heart didn't truly start beating again until she saw Ayana striding through the smoke, blood on his clothes but very much alive. "Are you hurt?" she asked, running to him. "Nothing serious." He caught her in his arms, holding her tight against his chest. "But we cannot stay here. They will bring more soldiers, and this place is no longer safe. Where will we go? North, into the mountains. There are places there where we can disappear, at least for a while. His jaw tightened with pain that had nothing to do with his physical wounds. This life is ending, Isabella. The old ways, the freedom to live as we choose, it's all disappearing. Then we'll create something new, she said with fierce determination, just as you said. We'll find a place where our children can grow up free, where they can choose their own paths. The evacuation was swift and efficient, born of long practice. Within hours, the camp had been reduced to cold ashes and scattered debris, giving no hint of the life and love that had flourished there. The Apache melted into the desert like smoke, taking only what they could carry on horseback. Isabella rode beside Ayanna, her skills in the saddle now equal to any Apache woman's. Behind them, dust clouds marked the approach of more cavalry, but ahead lay the mountains and the promise of safety, at least temporarily. "Do you regret it?" Ayanna asked during a brief rest in the shade of a towering saguaro cactus, choosing this life over the comfort and safety you could have had. Isabella looked around at the small band of survivors, men, women, and children, who had become her family, her people. Natsita caught her eye and smiled, the old woman's face serene despite their uncertain future. "Never," Isabella said, reaching for Ayanna's hand. "This is where I belong." The mountain hideout was a series of caves carved into the living rock by centuries of wind and water. It wasn't comfortable by civilized standards, but it was defensible and hidden, invisible from below, thanks to the way the rock formations folded in on themselves. Here, the remnants of Ayanna's band could rest and plan their next move. It was also here, surrounded by the eternal strength of stone and sky, that Isabella and Ayanna were married in the Apache tradition. The ceremony was simple but profound, witnessed by their adopted family under a canopy of stars that seemed to bless their union. Natsita painted intricate symbols on Isabella's face with red clay, each mark carrying deep spiritual significance. "You are no longer the woman who was taken from the stagecoach," the old woman said in careful Spanish. "You are reborn as daughter of the wind and earth, wife to our war chief, mother to the future." Ayanna wore the traditional wedding shirt his grandmother had made for this day, white deerskin decorated with turquoise and silver, symbols of protection and prosperity. When he looked at Isabella, his eyes held all the love and promise in the world. "Before the spirits and our people, I take you as my wife," he said, his voice carrying across the gathered circle. "Your heart is my heart, your dreams my dreams. Together we will walk the path toward tomorrow." "And I take you as my husband," Isabella replied, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "Whatever storms come, we will weather them together. Whatever children we are blessed with will carry the best of both our peoples in their blood." The celebration that followed was subdued by necessity but joyful in spirit. There was precious little food to spare, but what they had was shared freely. The young men played drums fashioned from stretched hide, while the women sang traditional songs that spoke of love enduring beyond all obstacles. When the last song faded and the fires burned low, Ayanna took Isabella's hand and led her to the cave that would be their new home. It was Spartan but clean, furnished with woven mats and soft furs that Natsita had somehow managed to save from their hasty evacuation. "It's not the palace you deserve," Ayanna said, suddenly uncertain. "It's perfect," Isabella replied, meaning it completely, "because it's ours." Their wedding night was everything Isabella had dreamed and more. Ayanna was a generous and passionate lover, worshipping her body with hands and lips that knew exactly how to drive her to the edge of sanity before pulling her back. They made love with desperate intensity, as if trying to pack a lifetime of passion into a single night. "I love you," Isabella gasped as he moved within her. Their bodies joined in the most intimate of dances. "Te amo con todo mi corazón," and "I love you, mi esposa," he replied, the Spanish words sounding right on his lips. Forever and beyond. The months that followed tested their love in ways neither had imagined. The cavalry continued to hunt them, forcing frequent moves to ever more remote locations. Food became scarce, and two of the elder women died during a particularly harsh winter. But through it all, Isabella and Ayana's bond only grew stronger. Spring brought unexpected news. Isabella was pregnant. A child, Ayana breathed, his hand covering her still flat belly with reverent care. Our child. The bridge between worlds, Isabella whispered, remembering his words from so long ago. The beginning of that new bloodline you envisioned. Natsita was overjoyed at the news, immediately taking charge of Isabella's care with the fierce protectiveness of a mother hen. The old woman seemed to bloom with purpose, sharing knowledge about pregnancy and childbirth that had been passed down through generations of Apache women. This child will be special, she told Isabella one evening as they sat by the fire, the other women nodding in agreement. Born of love that conquered hatred, carrying the strength of two proud peoples, the spirits have been preparing for this birth. The pregnancy progressed smoothly despite their nomadic lifestyle. Isabella found herself adapting to the physical demands with surprising ease, her body growing strong and rounded with new life. Ayana was endlessly solicitous, treating her like spun glass one moment and a warrior goddess the next. It was during her 7th month that the miracle occurred. They had made camp in a hidden valley, planning to stay only long enough to rest the horses and gather supplies. But as Isabella sat by the stream washing clothes, she noticed riders approaching from the south, not cavalry this time, but Mexican vaqueros flying a flag of truce. The leader was an older man with silver at his temples and kind eyes that reminded Isabella powerfully of her father. He dismounted slowly, his hands clearly visible, and called out in Spanish, "I seek the woman Isabella Martinez, taken from the Tucson stage. I bring word from her family." Isabella's heart leaped into her throat. "I am Isabella Martinez," she called back, rising awkwardly to her feet with one hand on her swollen belly. The man's eyes widened as he took in her appearance. Her Apache clothing, her obviously pregnant state, the ease with which she moved among the warriors who had appeared at the first sign of strangers. But there was no judgment in his expression, only compassion. "Señora, I am Diego Morales. Your mother sent me to find you, if you still lived." "My mother?" Isabella's voice broke on the words. "Is she alive and recovering?" Diego assured her quickly. "The medicine she needed was found and paid for by unexpected means. She wanted me to tell you that your sacrifice was not in vain, but that she would trade her health gladly to know you were safe and happy." Tears streamed down Isabella's face as Ayana moved to stand beside her, his arm going around her waist in silent support. "She truly recovers?" "Si, señora. And she wishes to know, do you come home willingly or do you remain by choice?" Isabella looked up at Ayana, seeing her own love reflected in his dark eyes. Around them, their Apache family waited with bated breath for her answer. Her hand went to her belly, where their child grew strong and healthy. "Tell my mother," she said clearly, "that I am home, that I have found love beyond measure and carry within me the future she dreamed of for our family. Tell her that her daughter is happy and free, and that she will have grandchildren who will make her proud." Diego smiled, his weathered face crinkling with genuine joy. "And if she wishes to see these grandchildren?" Isabella exchanged a look with Ayana, seeing the hope blooming in his eyes. "Tell her that when the time is right, when it is safe, she will meet them, and she will see that love truly can conquer all obstacles." The birth came with the first snow of winter, in a cave lit by firelight and warmed by the love of the women who had become Isabella's sisters. The labor was long and difficult, but Isabella drew strength from Ayana's presence outside the birthing cave, from Natsita's steady voice guiding her through each contraction. When the baby's first cry split the night air, Isabella felt as though her heart might burst with joy. "A son," Natsita announced, placing the squirming bundle in Isabella's arms. Strong and perfect, with his father's eyes and his mother's fierce spirit. The baby was indeed perfect, healthy and alert, with a shock of dark hair and skin the color of warm honey. When Ayana was allowed to enter and saw his son for the first time, Tears streamed unashamedly down his cheeks. "Miguel," Isabella said softly, choosing the Spanish name that honored her father's memory. "Miguel Ayana Martinez. The bridge between worlds," Ayana whispered, gently touching the baby's tiny fist. "Our son will carry both our names, both our people's heritage. He will know that he is loved beyond measure." As if in response, Miguel opened his eyes, dark as his father's but flecked with golden lights that seemed to dance in the firelight. He looked directly at his parents with an awareness that took their breath away. "He knows us," Isabella marveled. "Look at him. He knows exactly who he is and where he belongs." The years that followed were not easy, but they were filled with more love and joy than Isabella had ever imagined possible. Miguel grew strong and quick, equally at home on horseback or sitting quietly while Nazita told traditional stories. He spoke Apache, Spanish, and English with equal fluency, and by the age of 5 was already showing signs of the leadership qualities that marked his bloodline. 2 more children followed, a daughter they named Rosa Elena, whose beauty combined the best features of both parents, and another son, Carlos, who inherited his father's quiet strength and his mother's fierce intelligence. The family they had created became the center of a small but thriving community. Other displaced Apache joined them in their mountain refuge, along with Mexican families fleeing violence in the south, and even a few Anglo settlers who chose cooperation over conflict. Isabella's dream of teaching became reality as she established a school where children of all backgrounds learned together. "You were right," Ayana told her one evening as they watched their children play with others from their diverse community. "They are the bridge between worlds. Look at them. They don't see differences the way our generation does. To them, this mixed heritage is simply normal." "It's what the future looks like," Isabella agreed, leaning into his embrace. "A world where love matters more than the color of your skin or the language of your birth." Thank you so much for reading, listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please smash that like button and subscribe to help me reach my goal of 50 subscribers. Your support helps me create more amazing Western romance stories for you. What did you think of this story? Let me know in the comments below. Decades later, when Isabella's hair had turned silver and Ayana's face bore the lines of a life well lived, their children and grandchildren would gather to hear the story of how their family began. They would speak of the mail-order bride who was taken by Apaches but found her destiny, of the war chief who chose love over hatred, and of the legendary bloodline that grew from their union. A bloodline that carried within it the promise of a better world, where understanding and love could overcome any obstacle. And in the firelight of those storytelling nights, surrounded by the faces of children who embodied hope itself, Isabella would catch Ayana's eye and smile, knowing that the spirits had indeed known what they were doing when they brought them together in the Arizona desert all those years ago.